The suspension of the City of Johannesburg MMC for Public Safety and Security is a matter of great concern. And for more insight, we spoke to the ANC's Ethics Committee member, Nandi Pazonela, and the DA's Nicole Rahn. Councillor Nandi Pazonela, thanks very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.
Please tell us what MMC Malimukona has been found wanting by the Ethics Committee.
Well, what had actually happened is in the previous term, when she was MMC of Group Corporate and Shared Services, there was a complaint that came from an employee that she was unfairly dismissed, and there was also an irregular appointment that had occurred in her office. So the Ethics Committee investigated the matter in 2017 and processed it to the Integrity Commissioner, and the former MMC, who was now a councillor in Johannesburg, was then found guilty of violating the Code of Conduct. Now, Peter, in terms of the rules, she then notified the Speaker and the MEC that she had intended to appeal the sanction that was imposed on her by the Ethics Committee, because she also felt that it was unfair, it was unjust, and it was within her rights, and she did that. The MEC looked at the report of the Ethics Committee and Council and also confirmed that there was indeed a violation, but felt that at the time, the decision of Council, the sanction that the Council was imposing was not fit for the violation, and therefore opted for a suspension of 1 month without pay.
I mean, what she did was wrong.
Yes, it was.
Right? She hired a relative and did not follow due process.
She actually didn't hire a relative. There was a secondment, and Peter, you would have to indulge me here because I'm not at liberty to actually go into the crux of the case. But it suffices to say, there was a secondment that had happened in the office of the MMC. She was not directly, personally involved in it, but there was a process that was not followed by both the office and the officials that were involved, which also affected her.
Was a crime committed?
It's not a crime, Peter, it's a violation.
Okay.
It's a violation of the Code of Conduct. We are all bound by it, and I think we would all appreciate that sometimes in the process of us performing our duties, we do overstep the mark, and that is what the Ethics Committee is about.
So you think that the sanction that's now been imposed is sufficient, but what message does it send out that you perhaps get a slap on the wrist of a month's suspension for a violation of procedure?
It says there is justice, there is fairness, and there's opportunity that is given for everybody to be able to make their case.
All right, so as far as you're concerned, the matter's dealt with sufficiently?
The matter is dealt with sufficiently and it's closed, and I think it's very disingenuous and very naughty of the DA to come out today and say the MEC was accused of fraud and nepotism. It just shows how desperate they are to hawk onto the headlines. The MEC is not failing in her portfolio. They are accusing her of not dealing with drunken driving. And this is something that was raised in Council by the very same author of the statement, the former MMC, Councillor Sue. The third quarter and the fourth quarter results of drunken driving cases in Johannesburg had reduced drastically. And I think this is something that had happened across the country. The President is on the record. That was part of the results of the lockdown. It was part of the results of the reduction in the sales of alcohol. So where would you find the drunken drivers when people are at home?
Are you suggesting that the DA is abusing the Ethics Committee?
The DA is abusing the Ethics Committee. The DA is actually desperate because, as I speak to you today, on the 29th, the court has found that the very same fleet contract that they are accusing the MMC of not procuring has been declared unlawful and unconstitutional by the court. And this is something that the ANC had said, that over 70 million rands of the taxpayers' money was wasted under the watch of former MMC Sue in the DA and their failed project Mashaba.
Councillor Nandi Bazanela, thank you very, very much indeed for your time and giving us your view about how things played out. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Peter.
Joining us, welcome to the programme.
Peter, thank you very much for having me, and hello to all your guests.
So what's your take on this Mali Mokoena saga? Because the ANC says that the Democratic Alliance is abusing the Ethics Committee.
Okay, I would dispute that claim. I think, Peter, we need to remember what the role of the Ethics Committee is in Joburg. When we sign up as a public rep, we sign a code of conduct, which we're bound by to uphold the good name of the city and keep a separation of power with party and state, as well as making sure that we are governed by good governance. I don't believe that we've abused our powers. I think we gave our power, well, we administered our powers in an honourable light. And I do think that all public reps should be held accountable for their actions, because I think we are representatives of the city and need to be held to a higher standard. And I would like to think that we would be the same as the DA and hold our members to account, which we have done in the past.
All right, separate for us, help us understand. Mali Mokoena, did she commit a crime, or what is she guilty of?
The Ethics Committee did believe that she did. We felt that she overstepped her mandate as MMC by interfering in the appointments within her department. So a very serious no-no in interfering in appointments. We then sent the case up to the MEC of Public in provincial legislature, and he felt that she was guilty as well.
All right, so why the divergence? I mean, shouldn't there be standard sanctions for certain violations?
There should be standard sanctions for certain violations. We are guided by, we've got five as the Ethics Committee of what we can do depending on the severity, ranging from apology to suspension through to being removal. We felt that this was severe enough to have the removal, but the MEC of Cocta disagreed with us. It is, I think, a crevice within the law that you can have another sphere of government actually overruling council when we should be independent. But for the MEC to be able to, and legislation-wise at this point, it does allow for that, but it is a flaw in the system.
Was the violation so egregious that it deserved a removal from office?
I think maybe we need to look at it from a perspective of, if we look at our country at the moment, cater deployment, Friends for Pals, tenders that are getting awarded irregularly to friends and family, yes, I do think that the act was severe enough to deserve removal. This needs to stop. Government should be operating for the people, not for their friends.
So given the sanction that has been issued, what does this scenario leave in terms of maybe her and her office?
I'd like to see that the mayor actually upholds the council decision and the MEC's decision and puts her on suspension without pay. I'd call on the mayor to actually transparently show this to the residents of Joburg. But I do think it also is questionable, and you know, sometimes we've got to be guided by our own conscience and what is right. And is she fit to hold office, especially such a big portfolio as MEC of Public Safety?
The ANC says that the person who really should be coming before the Ethics Committee is the former MMC son.
I haven't heard that, and I wouldn't know on what basis they would be claiming that. There's been no reason to put into question MMC son in any regard that I'm aware of.
All right, so the matter's done and dusted now, so what lessons can be learned from what's happened?
I think we need to carry on fighting the good fight as the Ethics Committee. By and large, we have done some good work as a committee across parties and try to be as objective and unbiased as possible. And I think that needs to continue. I think the work that's been started with the Integrity Commissioner of training councillors and showing what is good governance, what is the code of conduct, what you should be doing. This is not a argument between two parties. Had MMC Mokoena not interfered, she would never have appeared in front of the Ethics Committee. We have to deal with those things.
And that's where we'll leave it. Nicole, Ron, thanks so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.